To escape an arranged marriage, she seduced a ruthless millionaire who'd worship her like a queen. Aria Moretti had been sold before she even knew the price. Her father, a once powerful businessman drowning in debt and desperation, had promised her to Victor Lane, a politician's son twice her age, with a reputation for cruelty hidden behind campaign smiles and charitable donations. The wedding was scheduled, the contracts were signed, and Aria's future had been decided without a single word from her own lips. She was 24 years old and already a prisoner, her life reduced to a bargaining chip in her father's failing empire. But beneath the silk gowns and practiced smiles burned something her father had underestimated, a will too strong to be bought. The night before her engagement was to be announced, Aria made a choice that would change everything. She cut her hair, changed her name, and disappeared into the chaos of Manhattan, trading her life of gilded captivity for the uncertainty of freedom. For months, she lived quietly, working at a luxury event planning agency, invisible among the city's elite, until he walked into her life. Damian Cross, a self-made millionaire with ice in his veins and a reputation for destroying anyone who crossed him. He was ruthless, calculating, untouchable. But when their eyes met across a boardroom, something shifted. He saw past her careful disguise to the defiance underneath, and she saw past his cold exterior to something far more dangerous, genuine interest. What started as a professional encounter became a game of attraction neither could resist. But Aria was hiding a secret that could destroy them both. And Damian? He was hiding one of his own. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. If you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is a story about breaking free, finding power in love, and discovering that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is trust someone completely. The Moretti estate sat on 5 acres of manicured grounds in Connecticut, a monument to old money and older traditions. Aria stood at the window of the formal dining room, watching the sun set over gardens her mother had planted before she died. The gardens were still beautiful, still meticulously maintained by a staff her father could no longer afford but refused to dismiss. Everything about the Moretti family was about appearances, about maintaining the illusion of wealth and power even as it crumbled beneath their feet. Behind her, the dining room table was set for 8. Crystal that had been in the family for 4 generations caught the candlelight. Silver, polished to a mirror shine, reflected the faces of people Aria had known her entire life, but never truly known at all. Her father sat at the head of the table, Roberto Moretti, 58 years old and looking every day of it. The stress of his failing business empire had aged him dramatically. Grey threaded through his dark hair. Lines bracketed his mouth. His hands, which had once commanded boardrooms, now trembled slightly as he reached for his wine glass. Beside him sat Marcus Lane, a state senator with aspirations for higher office and the resources to achieve them. He was in his 60s, distinguished in that way wealthy white men often were, with silver hair and the kind of tan that came from golf courses and yacht clubs. And next to Marcus sat his son, Victor Lane, 46 years old, twice divorced, and watching Aria with eyes that made her skin crawl. He wasn't unattractive in the conventional sense. He kept himself fit, dressed impeccably, and had the kind of sharp features that photographed well for campaign materials. But there was something in his gaze, something proprietary and cold, that made Aria feel like livestock being appraised. The dinner had been underway for an hour, and Aria had barely touched her food. Her father was in the middle of an elaborate toast, one he'd clearly rehearsed. "To new beginnings," Roberto said, raising his glass. "To partnerships that will strengthen both our families, and to the union of my daughter, Aria, and Victor Lane. May their marriage be as prosperous as the alliance it represents." The words hit Aria like a physical blow, even though she'd known this moment was coming. Marriage, alliance, prosperity, not a single mention of love. She forced herself to raise her glass, to smile the practiced smile she'd perfected over years of charity galas and society events. But inside, she was screaming. Victor stood, walking around the table to stand beside her chair. He placed his hand on her shoulder, his grip just a fraction too tight to be casual. "To my beautiful bride-to-be," he said, his voice smooth and practiced. "I promise to take excellent care of you." The way he said it made it sound like a threat. Aria's father beamed, relief evident in every line of his face. This marriage would save him. Victor's father was investing heavily in Moretti Industries, bailing out the failing company in exchange for political favors and a prestigious family connection. And all it cost was Aria's freedom. After dinner, the men retired to her father's study for brandy and cigars, leaving Aria to make polite conversation with Marcus Lane's wife, a woman who spoke in platitudes and seemed to have perfected the art of saying nothing with many words. Aria excused herself as soon as it was socially acceptable, claiming a headache. She went to her room, locked the door, and finally allowed herself to fall apart. The bedroom that had been hers since childhood felt like a beautiful prison cell. Aria stood in front of her vanity mirror, staring at her reflection. She barely recognized the woman looking back at her. Her dark hair fell in carefully styled waves past her shoulders. Her dress was designer, elegant, expensive. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like everything a society bride should be. She looked nothing like herself. Aria had been raised to be this, the perfect daughter, the valuable asset, the good girl who smiled at the right times and never caused trouble. Her mother, before the cancer took her when Aria was 16, had tried to prepare her for this life, had taught her all the subtle ways women of their class wielded power through charm and connection, through social currency and strategic marriages. But her mother had loved her father. Their marriage had been arranged too, but genuine affection had grown over time. Aria felt nothing but revulsion when she thought about Victor. She'd done her research. Both of Victor's ex-wives had signed ironclad NDAs as part of their divorce settlements, but whispers circulated in the social circles where women spoke in carefully coded language. Controlling, possessive, cruel behind closed doors. And Aria was supposed to marry him in 3 months. She looked at the engagement ring sitting in its velvet box on her dresser. 3 carats, emerald cut, surrounded by diamonds. Beautiful and cold, just like the man who'd chosen it without asking her preference. Tomorrow, there would be an engagement party. 200 guests, press coverage, the formal announcement that Aria Moretti was to become Mrs. Victor Lane. After that, there would be no escape. The contracts would be public, the political alliance cemented, her father's debts cleared, and Aria would belong to Victor, unless... The thought had been growing in her mind for weeks, since the day her father had first told her about the arrangement. What if she simply disappeared? The idea was insane, impossible. Women like her didn't just vanish. She had no real job skills, no money that wasn't controlled by trust funds her father managed, no life outside the carefully prescribed world of society events and family obligations, but she had something else. She had a will to survive. Aria made her decision in the space between one heartbeat and the next. She was leaving. Tonight. Aria moved with the efficiency of someone who'd been planning this in the back of her mind for weeks without consciously realizing it. She changed out of her designer dress into jeans and a simple sweater clothes she rarely wore, clothes that made her look ordinary instead of elegant. She opened her safe and pulled out every piece of jewelry she owned. Most of it had been gifts from her father, investments he'd made in her eventual marriage. She'd sell it all. Her passport was current. She had a credit card connected to a small account her grandmother had left her, one her father didn't monitor because the amount was insignificant compared to the family wealth. It wasn't much, maybe $30,000 if she sold everything carefully, but it was enough to start. She packed a single suitcase, choosing practical clothes over the designer wardrobe that lined her closet. She took her laptop, her phone, a few photographs. Then she sat down at her desk and wrote a letter. Father, I won't be sold. I won't marry a man I don't love to save a business you mismanaged. I won't spend my life as payment for your mistakes. Don't look for me. I'm leaving of my own free will, and I won't be coming back. You taught me that everything in life is a transaction. Consider this my final one. I'm buying my freedom with your disappointment. Aria. She left the letter on her bed, along with the engagement ring still in its box. Then she did something that felt both terrifying and liberating. She went into her bathroom, picked up a pair of scissors, and cut her hair. The long, dark waves that had taken years to grow fell into the sink. Aria cut until her hair barely touched her shoulders, until she looked different enough that someone scanning a crowd might not immediately recognize her. It wasn't a disguise, but it was a start. At 2 in the morning, Aria slipped out of her bedroom, down the servant's staircase, and out through the kitchen door. She'd called a car service from a burner phone she'd bought weeks ago, just in case. The driver was waiting at the end of the long driveway, away from the security cameras. As the car pulled away from the only home she'd ever known, Aria didn't look back. She'd left behind everything familiar, everything safe. But she'd gained something infinitely more valuable, herself. 6 months later, Aria barely remembered the girl she'd been. She'd sold the jewelry carefully, piece by piece, at different shops across the city to avoid suspicion. She'd rented a tiny studio apartment in a building where no one asked questions. She'd created a new identity, Ari Morgan, event coordinator, no family, no history. She'd gotten lucky with the job at Luminous Events, a prestigious agency that catered to Manhattan's elite. Her experience with society events translated well, and her new boss, Caroline Chen, had taken a chance on her despite the gaps in her resume. "You've got an eye for detail, and you don't panic under pressure," Caroline had said during the interview. "That's all I need to know." Aria threw herself into the work with an intensity that surprised even herself. Planning galas and corporate events kept her busy enough that she didn't have time to think about what she'd left behind. The long hours meant she fell into bed exhausted every night, too tired for the nightmares about Victor finding her. She'd kept her head down, made herself invisible despite working among the same circles she'd once traveled in. No one looked twice at the event staff. They were part of the background, necessary but unremarkable. Aria had finally achieved what she'd always wanted to be seen as herself, not as Roberto Moretti's daughter or Victor Lane's future wife. She was just Ari, and Ari was free, until the day Caroline called her into the office with news about their biggest client yet. "Cross Industries is hosting their annual investor gala," Caroline said, her excitement evident. "They've hired us to manage the entire event. Ari, this is huge. Damian Cross doesn't trust anyone with his events. If we pull this off, every major company in the city will want us." Aria's heart sank, even as she maintained her professional expression. "Cross Industries, the tech conglomerate?" "The same," Caroline confirmed. "You'll be the lead coordinator. I need someone who can handle high-pressure situations and demanding clients. Cross has a reputation for being difficult." Difficult was an understatement. Aria had read about Damian Cross in the business sections of newspapers she'd started following since escaping her old life. Self-made billionaire, built his empire from nothing after aging out of foster care at 18. Notoriously private, ruthlessly efficient, and known for destroying competitors who underestimated him. He was exactly the kind of powerful man Aria had sworn to avoid. But this was her job, and she needed this job. "When do we meet with him?" Aria asked. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. His office." Caroline smiled. "Don't let his reputation scare you. He's just a man." Aria had thought the same thing about Victor once. She knew better now. The Cross Industries building was a gleaming tower of steel and glass in Midtown Manhattan, a monument to modern architecture and new money. Aria arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in her most professional outfit, a charcoal grey suit that was elegant without being memorable. She'd learned to dress in a way that commanded respect, without drawing attention. The reception area alone probably cost more than most people's homes. Everything was sleek, minimalist, expensive. The receptionist was polished and efficient, directing Aria to the executive floor with the kind of cool professionalism that suggested she'd been trained to handle everyone from janitors to world leaders with the same courteous distance. Caroline met her at the elevator. "Ready?" her boss asked. "As I'll ever be," Aria replied. They were escorted to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking, all of Manhattan spread out below like a kingdom. And then he walked in. Damian Cross was not what Aria expected. She'd seen photos, of course, but photographs didn't capture the presence of the man. He was tall, at least 6'2", with dark hair that was just slightly too long to be conventional, as if he couldn't be bothered to maintain perfect grooming. His suit was impeccable, clearly bespoke, but he wore it with the kind of ease that suggested he'd be just as comfortable in jeans. But it was his eyes that stopped Aria cold. Grey, almost silver in the light from the windows, sharp and assessing, missing nothing. Those eyes swept over Caroline with polite acknowledgement, then landed on Aria, and held. For a moment that stretched too long, Damian Cross simply looked at her, not the way Victor had looked at her like property to be acquired. This was different. This was assessment, recognition of an equal opponent in some game Arya didn't even know she was playing. "Mr. Cross," Caroline said, breaking the moment. "This is Ari Morgan, your lead event coordinator." Arya extended her hand, forcing herself to meet those unnerving grey eyes. "Mr. Cross, it's a pleasure." His handshake was firm, professional. His hand was warm, and Arya felt the contact like an electric shock. "Miss Morgan," he said, his voice deep and controlled, "Caroline speaks highly of your work." "I do my best," Arya replied, withdrawing her hand and resisting the urge to wipe it on her skirt. Damien gestured for them to sit, then took his own seat at the head of the conference table. For the next hour, they discussed the gala. Damien was exacting in his requirements, nothing frivolous, everything purposeful. The event was meant to project power and innovation, to reassure investors and intimidate competitors. He asked detailed questions, challenged every suggestion, and approved nothing without seeing comprehensive plans. Arya found herself rising to meet his expectations. Where other clients might have irritated her with their demands, Damien's challenges felt like a test she was determined to pass. "The seating arrangement will be crucial," Damien said at one point. "I need certain people seated together for business discussions. Others need to be kept apart to avoid conflicts. I'll need a list of names and the dynamics you're managing," Arya said, making notes. "I've coordinated events with sensitive political situations before. I understand discretion." Something flickered in Damien's expression. Interest, maybe, or suspicion. "You've worked with politicians?" he asked. Arya's heart skipped, but her voice remained steady. "Corporate politics. High-stakes dinners where the wrong seating chart could cost millions in deals." It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. Damien nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving her face. "You don't seem intimidated by this." "Should I be?" Arya asked before she could stop herself. The corner of Damien's mouth quirked in something that might have been a smile. "Most people are, by the scope of the event, by me." Arya met his eyes directly. "Do I scare you, Mr. Cross?" The question escaped before she could think better of it, throwing his implied challenge back at him. Damien's expression shifted. Surprise, then something that looked almost like amusement. "No, Miss Morgan," he said slowly. "You intrigue me. That's far more dangerous." The air in the conference room seemed to compress. Caroline cleared her throat awkwardly. "Well, shall we discuss the timeline and budget?" The moment shattered, and they returned to business. But Arya could feel Damien's eyes on her throughout the rest of the meeting, assessing, calculating, trying to figure her out. When the meeting finally concluded and Caroline stood to leave, Damien addressed Arya directly. "Miss Morgan, I'd like you to handle this event personally. No delegation to junior staff. Can you commit to that level of involvement?" It was a demand disguised as a question. Arya should have been annoyed, should have bristled at the implication that she might not be fully committed. Instead, she found herself nodding. "Of course, I'll oversee every detail personally." "Good," Damien said, standing. "I'll expect weekly progress reports. Directly to me." "That's unusual," Caroline interjected. "Typically we work through your assistant." "I'm aware of what's typical," Damien interrupted smoothly. "I'm making an exception." His eyes found Arya's again. "I have a feeling this project requires special attention." After they left the building, Caroline practically vibrated with excitement in the elevator. "Did you see that? He wants to work directly with you. Do you know how rare that is? Damien Cross doesn't involve himself in event planning. He has people for that, but he wants you specifically." Arya felt uneasy rather than flattered. "Maybe he's just particular about this event." "Maybe," Caroline said, but her knowing smile suggested she thought otherwise. "Or maybe he recognized talent when he saw it. Either way, this is your chance to shine. Don't mess it up." As they stepped out onto the street, Arya pulled out her phone and found a message from an unknown number. "Efficient work in there. I look forward to our collaboration. DC." He'd gotten her number. Somehow, in the course of one meeting, Damien Cross had obtained her personal contact information. Most women would probably find that flattering, powerful, attractive, man showing interest. Arya found it unsettling, because men who broke rules, even small ones like obtaining phone numbers through questionable means, were men who believed rules didn't apply to them. And Arya had spent her entire life being controlled by men who thought they were above the rules. She wasn't about to let it happen again. The next 3 weeks were a blur of meetings, planning sessions, and increasingly frequent communication with Damien Cross. True to his word, he wanted weekly progress reports. But reports turned into hour-long strategy sessions in his office, where they discussed everything from floral arrangements to the psychological impact of room layouts. Damien was unlike any client Aria had ever worked with. He didn't just approve her suggestions, he challenged them, pushed her to think deeper, to consider angles she hadn't anticipated. "You've placed the senator's wife next to the tech CEO's husband," Damien said during one review, pointing to her seating chart. "Why?" "They both serve on the board of the Met," Aria explained. "Common ground for conversation. And you've ensured they won't spend the entire evening discussing art while their spouses are trying to negotiate a $50 million investment?" Aria paused, reconsidering. "You're right, I'll adjust." "I usually am," Damien said, but there was no arrogance in it, just statement of fact. What struck Aria most was how he looked at her during these meetings. Not like she was staff, not like she was inferior, but like she was a puzzle he was genuinely interested in solving. "You're different from my other contractors," he observed during their 4th meeting. "How so?" Aria asked, not looking up from her tablet where she was making notes. "You're not trying to impress me," Damien said. "Everyone who works with me either fears me or wants something from me. You seem to want neither." Aria did look up then. "I want to do my job well. Is that not enough?" "It's refreshing," Damien admitted. "Most people would have agreed with every suggestion I made, even the deliberately bad ones I throw in to test them." "You do that?" Aria asked, surprised. "Constantly," Damien said with the ghost of a smile. "You're the first person to call me on it." "Then your other contractors are either fools or cowards," Aria said before she could stop herself. Damien's smile widened. "Which are you, Miss Morgan? Fool or coward?" Aria met his eyes directly. "Neither. I'm someone who knows her worth." "I'm beginning to see that," Damien said quietly. The moments between them were becoming charged with something Aria didn't want to name, an awareness that went beyond professional respect. She told herself it was just chemistry, physical attraction between two people who happened to work together. It meant nothing, but she couldn't deny the way her pulse quickened when she saw his name on her phone, the way she found herself dressing more carefully on days she knew she'd see him, the way their conversations had started to drift from business into something more personal. "Do you always work this late?" Damien asked one evening when she was still in his office at 7, reviewing vendor contracts. "Do you?" Aria countered. "I live here," Damien said, and it didn't sound like a joke. "I built this company from nothing. It's all I have." There was something lonely in that admission, something that resonated with Aria's own isolation. "That sounds exhausting," she said carefully. "It is," Damien admitted, "but it's also safe. Can't lose what you don't have." Aria understood that logic intimately. It was the same reason she kept everyone at arm's length, never forming deep friendships or lasting connections. "Safety is overrated," she heard herself say. Damien's eyes snapped to hers. "Is it?" "Sometimes," Aria said. "Sometimes the safest choice is also the loneliest one." For a long moment, they just looked at each other. The office around them had emptied hours ago. They were alone, the city lights glittering through the windows, and something in the air between them shifted. "Have dinner with me," Damien said suddenly. It wasn't a question, but it wasn't quite a command either. "That's not appropriate," Aria said, even as part of her wanted to say yes. "You're my client." "The event is in 2 weeks," Damien said. "After that, I won't be your client anymore." "Then ask me again in 2 weeks," Aria replied, standing and gathering her things. "Will you say yes then?" Damien asked. Aria paused at the door. "I don't know. Ask me and find out." She left before he could respond, her heart pounding. This was dangerous. Getting involved with someone like Damien Cross, someone powerful, someone who could have her investigated, someone who might discover her real identity, was the worst possible idea. But God help her, she was tempted. The night before the gala, Aria couldn't sleep. She'd been over every detail 100 times. The venue was perfect. The catering was confirmed. The entertainment was rehearsed. The seating chart had been adjusted and readjusted until it was a masterpiece of social engineering. Everything was ready, but Aria's mind wouldn't quiet. She kept thinking about Damien, about the way he looked at her, about the almost invitation to dinner and her non-answer. about the fact that she was developing feelings for a man who could never know who she really was. Arya got out of bed at 2 in the morning and made tea, standing at the window of her tiny studio apartment and looking out at the city that had become her refuge. 6 months ago, she'd escaped one powerful man. Now she was falling for another. The irony wasn't lost on her. But Damien was different from Victor. Where Victor had been possessive and controlling, Damien was challenging and engaging. Where Victor had wanted to own her, Damien seemed genuinely interested in knowing her. Still, she couldn't risk it. Couldn't risk him finding out the truth and deciding she wasn't worth the trouble. Or worse, deciding she was exactly the kind of society connection that could benefit his business. Arya had worked too hard to build this new life. She wouldn't jeopardize it for attraction, no matter how intense. Her phone buzzed with a message. Damien Cross, can't sleep either. Arya stared at the text. It was 2:30 in the morning. How did he know she was awake? Ari Morgan, how did you know I wasn't sleeping? Damien Cross, lucky guess. Or maybe I'm learning to read you. Ari Morgan, that's presumptuous. Damien Cross, is it working? Despite herself, Arya smiled. Ari Morgan, why are you awake? Damien Cross, thinking about tomorrow and about dinner the day after. Ari Morgan, I haven't agreed to dinner. Damien Cross, not yet, but you will. Ari Morgan, you're very confident. Damien Cross, only about things I'm certain of. Ari Morgan, and you're certain I'll say yes. Damien Cross, I'm certain you feel this too, whatever this is. Arya's breath caught, the directness of it, the honesty. She should end this conversation, should set clear boundaries. Instead, she typed, what if I do? What if I feel it and still say no? Damien Cross, then I'll respect that, but I hope you won't, because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the day you walked into my conference room and refused to be intimidated. Arya closed her eyes, her heart pounding. This was dangerous. This was foolish. This was the first time in 6 months she'd felt truly alive. Ari Morgan, let's get through tomorrow first. Damien Cross, and then, Ari Morgan, and then we'll see. Damien Cross, I can live with that. Good night, Ari. Ari Morgan, good night, Damien. It was the first time she'd used his first name. The intimacy of it felt significant. Arya returned to bed, but she still didn't sleep. Her mind was too full of possibilities and dangers, hopes and fears. Tomorrow would be the gala, the culmination of weeks of work, and potentially the beginning of something that could either save her or destroy everything she'd built. The day of the gala arrived with perfect weather and mounting anxiety. Arya was at the venue by 6 a.m., overseeing setup and ensuring every detail was exactly as planned. The Metropolitan Museum's Great Hall had been transformed into a showcase of modern elegance. Dramatic lighting highlighted the architecture while creating intimate spaces within the grand room. Tables were set with precision, each one a study in refined luxury, without ostentation. It was exactly what Damien had wanted, impressive without being showy, powerful without being aggressive. By 5 p.m., when guests would begin arriving, everything was perfect. Arya wore a simple black dress, professional but elegant. She'd learned to dress in a way that allowed her to move through events without drawing attention, while still looking like she belonged. Damien arrived at 4 to do a final walkthrough. He was in a tuxedo, and the sight of him made Arya's breath catch. He looked devastating, dangerous, like every warning she'd ever been given about powerful men wrapped in perfect tailoring. It's perfect, he said after inspecting every corner of the space. Better than I imagined. That's what you're paying for, Arya replied, keeping her voice professional. Is it? Damien asked, moving closer. I thought I was paying for your expertise. This feels like something more, Mr. Cross. Damien, he corrected. I think we're past formalities. Damien, Arya amended. Your guests will be arriving soon. You should probably prepare. I am prepared, he said, still not moving away. The question is, are you? For the event? Yes, everything is. That's not what I'm asking, Damien interrupted gently. Are you prepared for what happens after? Arya's heart raced. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do, Damien said. You're brilliant at reading people, at anticipating what they need. You know exactly what I'm asking. "This isn't appropriate," Arya said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Probably not," Damien agreed, "but I stopped caring about appropriate the moment you looked at me in that conference room and asked if I scared you." Before Arya could respond, Damien's assistant appeared, reminding him that the first guests were arriving. Damien stepped back, the professional mask sliding into place. "We'll talk later," he said. "After." It sounded like a promise and a threat all at once. The gala was flawless. Arya moved through the evening like a ghost, ensuring everything ran smoothly while remaining invisible to the guests. She watched Damien work the room with the same precision he brought to everything else. He was magnetic, commanding attention without demanding it. People gravitated to him, seeking his approval, his insight, his favor. But multiple times throughout the evening, his eyes found hers across the crowded room. Each time, Arya felt the impact like a physical touch. This was dangerous. This was exactly what she'd sworn to avoid. But she couldn't seem to help herself. Around 10 p.m., as the event was reaching its peak, Arya stepped out onto one of the museum's balconies for a moment of fresh air. The night was cool, the city spread out below, glittering with lights. She could hear the muffled sounds of the party inside, the string quartet playing, the sophisticated laughter. "Hiding?" a voice asked behind her. Arya turned to find Damien standing in the doorway, backlit by the warm glow from inside. "Taking a breath," she said. "It's been a long day." "You've done extraordinary work," Damien said, stepping out onto the balcony and closing the door behind him. "Everything is perfect." "That was the goal," Arya replied. They stood in silence for a moment, the sounds of the city filling the space between them. "Can I ask you something?" Damien said finally. "That depends on the question," Arya replied carefully. "Who are you really, Ari Morgan?" The question hit like a punch to the gut. Arya forced herself to remain calm. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're too good at this to be someone with no background," Damien said. "You know how to navigate social hierarchies like someone born into them. You understand power dynamics like someone who's seen them up close. But when I have you investigated..." "You had me investigated?" Arya interrupted, anger and panic mixing. "Of course I did," Damien said, not apologetically. "I always know who I'm working with, but your background doesn't add up. Ari Morgan appeared 6 months ago with minimal history. No social media presence, no family connections, no past employers who remember you under that name." Arya's mind raced. This was it, the moment everything fell apart. "Maybe I just value my privacy," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Maybe," Damien said. "Or maybe you're running from something. Or someone." The accuracy of it made Arya's breath catch. Damien stepped closer. "I don't care what you're running from. I just need to know if it's going to come back and hurt my company." "It won't," Arya said firmly. "Whatever my past is, it has nothing to do with you or Cross Industries. But it has something to do with why you won't have dinner with me," Damien said. It wasn't a question. Arya looked away, out at the city, unable to meet his eyes. "I can't give you what you're looking for." "What do you think I'm looking for?" Damien asked. "Someone without complications," Arya said. "Someone whose past won't become a liability." "Then you fundamentally misunderstand me," Damien said, his voice soft but intense. "I don't want someone without complications. I want someone real, someone who understands that the past is just prologue." He moved even closer, close enough that Arya could feel the warmth of him in the cool night air. "I want you," Damien said simply. "Whoever you are, whoever you were. I want to know all of it." Arya finally looked at him, and the naked honesty in his eyes made her ache. "You don't know what you're asking," she whispered. "Then tell me," Damien said. "Help me understand." Arya opened her mouth to speak, to finally tell someone the truth about who she was and what she'd run from. But before she could, the balcony door burst open. A man stood there, backlit by the party. A man whose voice made Arya's blood run cold. "There you are, my dear," Victor Lane said, his smile sharp as a knife. "We've been looking everywhere for you." And just like that, Arya's carefully constructed new life shattered into 1,000 pieces. Have you ever kept a secret that could change everything? Let us know in the comments. And if this story is gripping you, hit that like button and subscribe. Arya felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Victor Lane stood in the doorway, impeccable in his tuxedo, his smile predatory and triumphant. Behind him, she could see her father's face, pale and anxious, and beyond them both, the glittering party continued, oblivious to the drama unfolding on this small balcony. Time seemed to slow. Arya's mind raced through possibilities: run, deny, fight. But her body remained frozen, every instinct screaming danger, while her feet refused to move. Damien's hand touched her lower back, steady and grounding. "I'm sorry," Victor said, his tone dripping with false courtesy. "Are we interrupting?" "Yes," Damien said, his voice cold and sharp as a blade. "You are. This is a private conversation." Victor's eyes narrowed, taking in the possessive placement of Damien's hand on Arya's back. "I don't believe we've been introduced. I'm Victor Lane, State Assemblyman." "And you are?" "Damien Cross. This is my event. And you're interrupting." "How rude of me," Victor said, though his tone suggested he felt nothing of the sort. "But you see, I have urgent business with Miss Morgan, is it? Though I remember her by another name." Arya found her voice, though it came out steadier than she felt. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Victor stepped onto the balcony, and Roberto Moretti followed, looking smaller and more defeated than Arya remembered. "Arya, darling, this charade has gone on long enough." Damien's hand on her back pressed slightly, a silent question. She could feel him processing, calculating, trying to understand what was happening. "My name is Ari Morgan," Arya said firmly, meeting Victor's eyes without flinching. "I don't know who you think I am, but you're mistaken." "Mistaken," Victor repeated, his smile widening. "Your father, my dear, has been searching for you for 6 months. We finally tracked you down through that doesn't matter now. The important thing is you're coming home." "I'm not going anywhere with you," Arya said. "Actually, you are," Victor said, his voice hardening beneath the veneer of politeness. "You see, there are contracts, legal obligations, and more importantly, there's the matter of the substantial investment my family made in your father's company based on our impending marriage." Roberto finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Arya, please, just come home. We can work this out." "Work it out?" Arya's voice rose despite her best efforts to stay calm. "You sold me, father, like I was property, and when I refused to be sold, you had me hunted down. You embarrassed us," Roberto said, and there was anger beneath the desperation now. "You humiliated our family. Do you have any idea what your disappearance did to our reputation?" "I don't care about your reputation," Arya shot back. "I care about my freedom." "Freedom," Victor scoffed. "Is that what you call this? Working as an event planner? Living in some tiny apartment in a neighborhood beneath your station? This isn't freedom, Arya. This is poverty with delusions." Damien's voice cut through the tension like ice. "I'm going to ask you both to leave, now." Victor's eyes shifted to Damien, reassessing. "Mr. Cross, I understand this is awkward, but this is a family matter. Once we've sorted it out, I'm sure Arya will complete whatever work you've hired her for." "She's not going anywhere," Damien said flatly. "I don't think you understand the situation," Victor said, his mask of politeness beginning to crack. "Arya is my fiancée. She has legal obligations." "She's not your anything," Damien interrupted, "and she's certainly not leaving with you." Victor's expression darkened. "This doesn't concern you, Mr. Cross. I suggest you stay out of it before you find yourself on the wrong side of some very powerful people." "Is that a threat?" Damien asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "It's a statement of fact," Victor replied. "My father is a state senator with considerable influence. The Moretti family has connections throughout New York society. If you interfere in this, you'll find that your business interests suffer accordingly." Arya felt Damien tense beside her, and she knew she had to stop this before it escalated further. She'd escaped Victor once. She wouldn't let him destroy someone else in his pursuit of her. "Stop," she said, her voice cutting through the men's posturing. "Both of you, just stop." She turned to Damien, and the look in his eyes, betrayal mixed with concern, nearly broke her. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have told you. My real name is Arya Moretti. 6 months ago, I ran away from an arranged marriage to this man. I changed my name, my appearance, my entire life to escape. And in doing so, you cost my family a considerable investment," Victor added coldly, "not to mention the humiliation." "I cost you nothing," Arya shot back. "I freed myself from being bartered like livestock." "The law sees it differently," Victor said. There are contracts, signed by your father as your legal guardian. Breach of those contracts has consequences. Damien's jaw tightened. She's 24 years old. Her father has no legal guardianship, but he does have power of attorney over certain trusts and family assets, Victor said smugly. Assets that Arya accessed when she disappeared. One could argue that constitutes theft. That's ridiculous, Arya said, panic rising. That was my grandmother's trust. My father had no right. He had every right, Victor interrupted. And unless you return and honor your commitments, he'll be forced to press charges. Theft, fraud. I'm sure the media would have a field day with Roberto Moretti's daughter turned common thief. It was a trap, a carefully constructed cage with bars made of reputation and legal technicalities. Arya looked at her father, searching for any sign of the man who'd once read her bedtime stories and called her his princess. But Roberto wouldn't meet her eyes. "Father, please," she said quietly. "Don't do this." "You did this," Roberto said, finally looking at her. "When you ran away. When you chose your selfishness over family duty." "Duty," Arya repeated, the word bitter in her mouth. "You mean when I chose freedom over being sold to pay your debts?" "Enough," Victor said sharply. "Arya, you have two choices. Come with us now, quietly, and we'll forget this unfortunate episode, or refuse and face the consequences. Criminal charges, public scandal. I imagine Mr. Cross wouldn't appreciate his company being associated with such a mess." Arya felt the walls closing in. After 6 months of freedom, of building a new life, she was right back where she'd started, being controlled by men who saw her as a means to an end. She opened her mouth to respond, to surrender, to protect Damien and his company from the fallout of her past. But before she could speak, Damien stepped forward. "If she belongs to anyone," he said, his voice cold and absolute, "it's because she chooses to be, not because of contracts or family obligations or threats." He turned to Arya, and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. "Do you want to go with them?" he asked simply. "No," Arya whispered. "Then you're not going," Damien said. He looked back at Victor. "As for your threats, try them. Press your charges, leak your stories. I have more resources than you can imagine, and lawyers who make careers out of destroying people who try to manipulate the system." "You'd risk your company's reputation for her?" Victor asked incredulously. "You barely know her." "I know enough," Damien said. "I know she's brilliant and brave and has survived men like you trying to own her. That's all I need to know." Victor's expression turned ugly. "You're making a mistake, Cross. A very expensive one." "Probably," Damien agreed, "but it's my mistake to make." He took Arya's hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "Come on, we're leaving." As they moved toward the door, Victor's voice stopped them. "This isn't over, Arya. You can run to your millionaire protector, but eventually you'll have to face the consequences of your choices. And when you do, I'll be waiting." Damien didn't respond, just guided Arya back into the museum, through the party that continued obliviously, and out to where his car waited. The ride to Damien's penthouse was silent. Arya sat in the back of his town car, her mind spinning, unable to process everything that had just happened. She'd been found. Her past had caught up with her, and Damien had stood between her and the men who wanted to drag her back into captivity. But at what cost? She'd lied to him, hidden her identity, and now he'd made himself a target of Victor's vindictiveness to protect someone he barely knew. When they arrived at his building, a sleek tower in Tribeca, Damien led her inside without a word. The elevator ride to the penthouse seemed to take forever, the silence between them heavy with unspoken questions. The penthouse was exactly what Arya would have expected: modern, minimalist, expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The furnishings were elegant but sparse, giving the impression that this was a place Damien existed rather than truly lived. "Sit," Damien said, gesturing to the couch. "I'll get you something to drink." Arya sat mechanically, her body moving on autopilot, while her mind struggled to catch up with reality. Damien returned with 2 glasses of whiskey, handing her one before settling in the chair across from her. "Talk," he said simply. "Where did she even begin?" "I'm sorry," Arya started. "I should have told you. Should have been honest from the beginning." "Probably," Damien agreed. "But I understand why you weren't. You were protecting yourself." "I was protecting a lie," Arya corrected. Ari Morgan isn't real. She's a fiction I created to escape. Is she? Damien asked. Because the woman I've been working with for the past month, the one who challenged me and impressed me and made me feel things I haven't felt in years, she seems pretty real to me. Arya felt tears burn in her eyes. You don't understand. Victor is dangerous. My father is desperate. They won't just let this go. I don't expect them to, Damien said calmly. I expect them to try every trick they have, and I'm prepared for that. Why? Arya asked desperately. Why would you risk everything for someone you barely know? Someone who lied to you? Damien set down his glass and leaned forward, his eyes intense. Because I've spent my entire adult life building walls, he said, keeping people at a distance, never trusting anyone because everyone wants something from me. Money, connections, power. He paused. But you didn't want any of that. You just wanted to do your job well. You challenged me because you thought I was wrong, not because you were trying to impress me. You were genuine in a world where nothing is genuine. Until I wasn't, Arya said bitterly. Until you found out I was lying about who I am. You weren't lying about who you are, Damien corrected. You were lying about your name and your past. But the person you've been with me, that's real. I'd stake my company on it. You might have to, Arya said. Victor meant what he said. He'll come after you. Let him, Damien said with a shrug. I've been dealing with powerful men trying to destroy me since I was 18. He's not the first and won't be the last. Arya shook her head. You don't know him. He's vindictive and patient. He'll wait years if he has to, looking for the perfect moment to strike. Then I'll wait too, Damien said simply. And while I'm waiting, I'll make sure he has no leverage to use. How? Arya asked. Damien smiled, and it wasn't entirely kind. By making sure the world knows exactly what kind of man he is. I may not have political connections, but I have something better: money and information, and I'm very good at using both. This is insane, Arya said. You're talking about going to war with a state assemblyman and his powerful father. I'm talking about protecting someone who matters to me, Damien corrected. There's a difference. Arya looked at him. This man who'd known her for a month, who'd learned her deepest secret only hours ago, and was already prepared to burn his carefully maintained neutrality to keep her safe. Why do I matter to you? She asked quietly. Damien was silent for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was rough with honesty. Because for the first time in my life, I met someone who saw me as just a person, not a billionaire, not a CEO, just me. And I saw you the same way. Not as Arya Moretti or Ari Morgan, but as someone real and complicated and worth knowing. He stood and crossed to the couch, sitting beside her. I don't care about your family name or your father's debts or whatever contract some entitled politician thinks give him ownership of you. I care about the woman who asked me if I scared her and meant it. The woman who isn't intimidated by power because she knows the difference between strength and cruelty. Arya felt a tear slip down her cheek. I'm terrified. Good, Damien said, reaching up to wipe away the tear with his thumb. That means you understand how serious this is, but you're not alone in it anymore. You could still walk away, Arya said. Tell Victor you didn't know who I was, that I deceived you. He'd probably believe it. I could, Damien agreed, but I won't, because I want this. I want you, and I'm done pretending I don't. Before Arya could respond, Damien leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was fierce and claiming and full of all the tension that had been building between them for weeks. Arya kissed him back with equal intensity, her hands fisting in his shirt, 6 months of loneliness and fear melting away in the heat of his touch. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Damien rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he said. Not because you're hiding, not because you're afraid, but because you want to. I do want to, Arya whispered, but I don't know if I can. Victor was right about one thing: there are contracts, legal obligations. My father could press charges. Then we'll fight them, Damien said firmly. Together. You keep saying that, Arya said. Together, but you barely know me. I know enough, Damien repeated, and I want to know more. Everything, the real you, not the society princess or the runaway or the event planner. Just Arya. Arya pulled back slightly, looking into his eyes, searching for any sign of doubt or hesitation. She found none. This is going to get messy, she warned. I'm counting on it, Damien said with a slight smile. I've always been better at fighting than diplomacy. Despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the danger, Arya found herself smiling back. Okay, she said. Together. The next morning, Arya woke in an unfamiliar bed in an unfamiliar room. For a moment, she panicked, disoriented. Then the memories flooded back, Victor finding her, Damien protecting her, the kiss that had led to more kisses, eventually leading to his guest room when they'd both agreed things were moving too fast to go further. She found Damien in the kitchen, already dressed in slacks and a crisp white shirt, working on his laptop while coffee brewed. "Morning," he said, looking up. "Coffee?" "Please," Arya said, suddenly feeling awkward in the light of day. Last night, fueled by adrenaline and emotion, everything had felt clear. But now, in the harsh reality of morning, the magnitude of what they were facing settled over her like a weight. Damien poured her a cup, remembering without asking that she took it with just a splash of milk. That small gesture, him paying attention, him caring enough to remember, made her chest tighten. "I've been thinking," Damien said, as she settled at the kitchen island. "We need to get ahead of this, control the narrative before Victor and your father try to spin it their way." "What do you mean?" Arya asked. "I mean, we need to be public about our relationship," Damien said. "Not hiding, not apologizing. We make it clear that you're with me by choice, and that anyone who has a problem with that can deal with me." Arya's stomach dropped. "Damien, that's exactly what Victor wants. Public attention means public pressure. Your board, your investors, they won't be happy about you getting involved in a scandal." "My board works for me, not the other way around," Damien said firmly. "And my investors care about returns, which I've consistently delivered. They'll grumble, but they'll fall in line." "You're underestimating the damage Victor can do," Arya insisted. "He has political connections, media contacts. He can make this look like I'm some gold digger who seduced you to escape my obligations." "Then we tell the truth first," Damien said, "before he can twist it. We get ahead of the story." Arya shook her head. "The truth makes me look like a runaway, like someone who abandoned her family and stole money." "The truth makes you look like a woman who refused to be sold into a marriage she didn't want," Damien corrected. "That's not running away. That's having the courage to save yourself." "Society won't see it that way," Arya said bitterly. "They'll see a spoiled rich girl who threw a tantrum instead of honoring her commitments." "I don't care what society thinks," Damien said, moving around the island to stand beside her. "And neither should you. You've spent 6 months building a life on your own terms. Don't let fear of their judgment make you crawl back into a cage." "It's not just judgment," Arya said. "Victor wasn't bluffing about the legal issues. My father could press charges. It might not stick, but the process alone would be humiliating and expensive." "Let him try," Damien said. "I have an army of lawyers who would love nothing more than to tear apart a case built on spite and wounded pride." Arya wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that his money and power could protect them both. But she'd seen how men like Victor operated. They didn't fight fair. They found vulnerabilities and exploited them ruthlessly. "What about your company?" she asked. "Cross Industries has government contracts, doesn't it? Victor's father sits on committees that approve those contracts. He could make things very difficult for you." Damien's jaw tightened. "Yes, he could. And if he tries, I'll diversify. I built this company from nothing once. I can pivot if I need to." "You'd risk everything you've built?" Arya asked, unable to comprehend that level of commitment to someone he barely knew. "For you," Damien said, cupping her face in his hands. "Yes, because what's the point of having everything if you're completely alone? I've been alone my entire adult life, Arya, building an empire to prove I was worth something. But you're the first person who made me feel like I was worth something even without the empire." Arya felt tears sting her eyes. "You barely know me." "I know enough," Damien said for the third time. "I know you're brilliant and brave. I know you don't use people. I know you value freedom more than security. And I know that when I'm with you, I feel more alive than I have in 20 years. "That could just be attraction," Arya said, even as her heart wanted to believe it was more. "It's not," Damien said firmly. "I've had attraction before. This is different. This is significant." Before Arya could respond, Damien's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened. What is it? Arya asked. Email from my head of security, Damien said, turning his phone so she could see. There are reporters outside the building. Apparently, someone leaked that you spent the night here. Arya's blood ran cold. Victor. Probably, Damien agreed. He's moving fast, trying to control the narrative by making it look sordid. We need to make a statement, Arya said, her mind already shifting into crisis management mode. Before this gets worse, we need to tell the truth, Damien interrupted. All of it. Your side of the story, in your words, before Victor can twist it into something ugly. A press conference, Arya asked, panic rising. Damien, I can't. I've spent 6 months being invisible. I can't just... You can, Damien said, and you will. Because if we don't seize control of this story now, Victor will shape it into whatever serves him best. He was right. Arya knew he was right, but the thought of standing in front of cameras, of exposing herself to public scrutiny, of potentially facing her father's disappointment and Victor's rage on national television, it was terrifying. I'll be right there with you, Damien said, as if reading her mind. Every step. You won't do this alone. Arya took a shaky breath. Okay. When? Today, Damien said. This afternoon. Before the story has time to metastasize into something we can't control. That's fast, Arya said. It has to be, Damien replied. We make the announcement, we answer questions honestly, and we make it clear that you're here by choice and under my protection. Your protection, Arya repeated. That makes me sound like a damsel in distress. Then we make it clear you're not, Damien said. We frame this as what it is, a woman who refused to be controlled, and a man who respects that choice enough to stand with her. Arya looked at him, this powerful man who was risking everything for her, and made her decision. Okay, she said. Let's do it. By 2 p.m., the conference room at Cross Industries was packed with reporters. Damien's PR team had worked frantically to arrange everything, sending out a press release that promised significant personal announcements from CEO Damien Cross. The speculation had been immediate and intense. Was he stepping down, selling the company, getting married? That last one was closer to the truth than anyone knew. Arya stood backstage, dressed in a simple but elegant navy dress that Damien's assistant had procured from somewhere. Her hair was styled, her makeup perfect, but inside she was screaming. Damien found her pacing in the green room. Ready? He asked. No, Arya said honestly, but I'll do it anyway. That's courage, Damien said. Doing it even when you're terrified. Or stupidity, Arya muttered. Damien smiled slightly and took her hand. Just tell the truth. That's all anyone can ask. They walked out together, and the camera flashes were immediate and blinding. Damien led her to a podium where 2 microphones had been set up. He stood slightly to the side, a position of support rather than dominance. Arya stepped up to the microphone, her heart pounding so hard she was sure the reporters in the front row could hear it. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice surprisingly steady. My name is Arya Moretti. Some of you may recognize that name from society pages or business news. For the past 6 months, I've been living under a different name, Ari Morgan, working as an event coordinator. The reporters immediately started shouting questions, but Damien's security team kept them quiet. I changed my name and disappeared, Arya continued, because 6 months ago, my father arranged for me to marry a man I didn't love, a man twice my age who I'd been promised to in exchange for financial assistance for my family's failing business. More shouting, more camera flashes. I'm 24 years old, Arya said, her voice growing stronger. I'm an adult, capable of making my own choices, and I chose not to be sold into a marriage I didn't want. So I left. I built a new life, used my skills to support myself, and for the first time in my life, I was free. She paused, taking a breath. Last night, at an event I was managing, my former fiancé and my father found me. They demanded I return to honor contracts I never signed and commitments I never made. They threatened legal action and public scandal if I refused. Arya looked directly into the cameras. I am refusing. I will not return to a man who sees me as property. I will not honor contracts that treat me as a commodity, and I will not apologize for choosing freedom over obligation. The room erupted again, but Arya pushed forward. I'm here today because Damien Cross offered me something no one else ever has the choice to be myself without conditions. We've developed feelings for each other over the past month. Real feelings, based on who we are as people, not on family connections or business arrangements. She stepped back, and Damien moved forward to join her. I want to be clear about something, Damien said, his voice carrying the same authority he used in boardrooms. Aria is here because she wants to be, not because I'm coercing her, not because she's trying to use me, but because we found something genuine in each other. He looked directly at the cameras. I'm prepared for the fallout from this. I know there will be pressure from political circles, from people who think arranged marriages are acceptable in the 21st century. I don't care. I'm standing with Aria, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. The questions started immediately, shouted over each other in a chaotic chorus. Miss Moretti, are you concerned about legal action from your family? Mr. Cross, won't this affect your government contracts? Is it true you're already living together? What about the money you allegedly took? Damien's PR director stepped forward to moderate, selecting questions one at a time. A reporter from the Times was chosen first. Miss Moretti, your former fiancé, Victor Lane, has issued a statement saying you're emotionally unstable and that this is a cry for help. How do you respond? Aria felt anger flash through her, burning away the fear. I respond by saying that Victor Lane is a man who can't accept that a woman would choose freedom over being his wife, she said clearly. I'm not emotionally unstable. I'm exercising my right to self-determination, and if that makes powerful men uncomfortable, that's their problem, not mine. Another reporter, Mr. Cross, aren't you concerned about the impact this will have on Cross Industries? Senator Lane sits on several committees that oversee your government contracts. I'm aware, Damien said coolly, and if Senator Lane or anyone else tries to use their political position to punish a private citizen for making personal choices, I'll make sure every major news outlet knows about it. I'm happy to fight that battle in the court of public opinion. A third reporter, Miss Moretti, what about the allegations that you stole from your family? Aria had expected this. I accessed a trust fund my grandmother left to me. My father had been managing it, but it was legally mine. I used that money to start my new life. If my father believes that constitutes theft, he's welcome to pursue it in court, where a judge can review the trust documents and determine who has the legal right to those funds. The questions continued for another 20 minutes, each one an attempt to find weakness or contradiction. But Aria and Damien stood firm, presenting a united front. Finally, Damien's PR director called an end to the conference. Thank you all for coming, she said. Mr. Cross and Miss Moretti won't be taking any additional questions at this time. As they walked off stage, Aria felt like she might collapse. The adrenaline that had carried her through the conference was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. But they'd done it. They'd told their story, unfiltered and honest. Now they'd have to live with the consequences. The fallout was immediate and intense. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Cable news, social media, entertainment websites, everyone had an opinion about the runaway heiress and the billionaire CEO. The reactions were predictably divided. Some people praised Aria for standing up for herself, calling her brave and inspiring. Feminist groups championed her as an example of women refusing to be controlled by patriarchal systems. Others condemned her as selfish and spoiled, saying she'd abandoned her family obligations and was using Damien for protection and money. Victor issued his own statement, positioning himself as the wronged party. He claimed Aria had emotional issues stemming from her mother's death, that the family had been trying to help her, and that Damien was taking advantage of a vulnerable woman. It was exactly the kind of manipulative spin Aria had expected. But there were also unexpected allies. One of Victor's ex-wives, who'd signed an NDA years ago, publicly broke it to share her own story of emotional abuse during their marriage. She corroborated Aria's characterization of Victor as controlling and vindictive. A journalist who'd been investigating the Lane family's finances published an article about questionable campaign contributions and conflicts of interest. The narrative wasn't entirely in their favor, but it wasn't entirely against them either. Aria spent the evening in Damien's penthouse, watching the news coverage with a mixture of horror and fascination. This is surreal, she said, as a commentator debated whether she was a feminist icon or a spoiled brat. People who've never met me are deciding who I am. Welcome to being a public figure, Damien said wryly. It doesn't get easier. How do you handle it? Arya asked. The constant judgment? I remember that the people whose opinions actually matter can be counted on one hand, Damien said. Everyone else is just noise. Arya's phone had been buzzing non-stop with calls from numbers she didn't recognize. She'd turned off notifications hours ago. But there was one call she couldn't ignore. Her father. She stared at his name on her screen, her finger hovering over the answer button. You don't have to talk to him, Damien said gently. I know, Arya said, but maybe I should. Maybe there's still a chance to make him understand. She answered the call and put it on speaker so Damien could hear. Father. Arya. Roberto's voice was tight with controlled anger. What have you done? I told the truth, Arya said. Something you should try. The truth? Roberto's laugh was bitter. You've humiliated this family, destroyed our reputation, made us look like monsters who tried to sell our daughter. You did try to sell me, Arya said quietly. That's not a mischaracterization. I tried to secure your future, Roberto corrected. Victor is a good match. Stable, connected. He would have taken care of you. I don't need to be taken care of, Arya said. I need to be free. Freedom? Roberto scoffed. Is that what you call running to another rich man the moment you're in trouble? You've just traded one cage for another. That's not what this is, Arya said, but doubt crept in despite her best efforts to suppress it. Was her father right? Had she just run from Victor's control into Damien's? Isn't it? Roberto pressed. You're living in his penthouse, hiding behind his money and power. How is that different from being Victor's wife? Because I chose it, Arya said firmly. That's the difference. Choice. Choice, Roberto repeated. You're so naive, Arya. You think this man cares about you. He's using you. Once the novelty wears off, once you're no longer the forbidden fruit he had to fight for, he'll discard you just like Victor would have. That's not true, Arya said, glancing at Damien. How do you know? Roberto demanded. You've known him for a month. You knew Victor for years before your engagement was arranged. At least with Victor, you knew what you were getting. I knew I was getting a controlling, abusive man who saw me as property, Arya shot back. Forgive me for thinking I could do better. Abusive, Roberto said dismissively. Victor was never abusive. You're being dramatic. His ex-wife disagrees, Arya said. Or did you miss her interview? A bitter woman looking for attention, Roberto said. You're smarter than this, Arya. Come home. We can fix this. I'll talk to Victor. Explain that you were confused, that this other man took advantage. Stop, Arya interrupted. Just stop. I'm not coming home. I'm not apologizing, and I'm certainly not marrying Victor. Then you leave me no choice, Roberto said, his voice hardening. I'm moving forward with legal action. Theft of trust funds, breach of contract, fraud. You'll be tied up in court for years. Do it, Arya said, her voice steadier than she felt. Take me to court. Let a judge review those trust documents and see who really has legal right to that money. Let's talk about breach of contract when I never signed anything. Let's discuss fraud when you're the one who tried to trade your daughter for a business bailout. You ungrateful. I'm done, Father, Arya interrupted. I spent my whole life trying to be the daughter you wanted, the perfect society princess who'd marry well and bring honor to the family name. But I'm not her anymore. I'm myself. And if you can't accept that, then we have nothing left to say to each other. Arya. She ended the call. For a moment, she just sat there, staring at the phone in her hand, processing what she'd just done. She'd severed the last tie to her old life, cut the final thread connecting her to the family that had raised her. She waited for the grief, the regret, the doubt. But what she felt instead was relief. You okay? Damien asked quietly. Arya looked up at him. This man who'd stood between her and the people, trying to drag her back into captivity. He asked how you were different from Victor, she said. How being with you was different from being owned by him. And what's your answer? Damien asked, his expression carefully neutral. Arya stood and crossed to where he sat, kneeling so she was at eye level with him. The difference is that you asked me to stay instead of demanding it, she said. The difference is that you gave me space to make my own choice, instead of deciding for me. The difference is that you're fighting for my freedom, not for ownership of me. She paused, her eyes searching his. Victor wanted to possess me. You want to know me. That's everything. Damien's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. Your father's not entirely wrong, he said quietly. You barely know me. This could all fall apart. I could turn out to be just another controlling man in expensive suits. You could, Arya agreed, but I don't think you will. And even if you did, I'm strong enough now to walk away. I proved that when I left Victor. I can do it again if I have to. You won't have to, Damien said firmly. Because I have no interest in controlling you. I'm interested in partnering with you, building something together, but only if that's what you want. It is, Arya said. I want this. I want you. I'm terrified and uncertain, but I want to try. Damien leaned forward and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, he said, Then let's try. Together. The next 2 weeks were a gauntlet. Roberto followed through on his threat, filing a lawsuit alleging theft and fraud. Victor's father used his political connections to launch an investigation into cross-industries government contracts. The media circus intensified. Paparazzi camped outside Damien's building. Tabloids ran increasingly outrageous stories about their relationship, but through it all, Damien and Arya presented a united front. They appeared together at a charity gala, ignoring the whispers and stares. They gave a joint interview to a respected journalist, telling their story in depth. They refused to hide or apologize. Damien's lawyers filed countersuits, dismantling Roberto's claims piece by piece. They provided evidence that Arya's grandmother's trust had been set up specifically to be accessible only to Arya, with her father as administrator only until she turned 21. Victor's political maneuvering backfired when an ethics investigation was launched into whether he was abusing his position for personal vendettas. Slowly, the narrative began to shift. What had started as a scandal evolved into a conversation about women's autonomy, arranged marriages in modern society, and the abuse of power by wealthy families. Arya found herself becoming an unlikely spokesperson for women escaping controlling relationships. She started receiving messages from women sharing their own stories, thanking her for speaking out. It was overwhelming and humbling in equal measure, but the real turning point came 3 weeks after the press conference. Arya was in Damien's home office, working on a proposal for a foundation she wanted to start, one that would help women escape arranged marriages and abusive relationships, when Damien appeared in the doorway. His expression was strange, shocked, maybe, or awed. What is it? Arya asked, immediately worried. What happened? I need to tell you something, Damien said, sitting down across from her. Something I should have told you weeks ago. Arya's stomach dropped. Okay. I've known who you were since the second week we worked together, Damien said. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. What? Arya breathed. I recognized you from society photographs, Damien explained. I'd seen your picture at various charity events. When you introduced yourself as Ari Morgan, I thought it was strange, so I had you investigated. Arya felt like the ground was tilting beneath her. You've known this whole time? Yes, Damien said. I found out about Victor, about your father's debts, about the arranged marriage, everything. And you didn't say anything? Arya asked, hurt and betrayal flooding through her. I wanted to, Damien said quickly, but I also wanted you to tell me yourself. I wanted you to trust me enough to share your truth. So you just waited? Arya asked. Let me lie to you every day while you knew the truth? I didn't see it as lying, Damien said. I saw it as you protecting yourself, and I wanted to give you the space to decide when you were ready to let me in. Arya stood, her mind reeling. That's not your decision to make. You should have told me you knew. You're right, Damien said, standing as well. I should have. I was wrong to keep it from you. Why now? Arya demanded. Why tell me now? Because I don't want there to be any secrets between us, Damien said. Because what we have is too important to build on deception, even deception with good intentions. Good intentions? Arya laughed bitterly. You investigated me. You knew everything about my past while I thought I was fooling you. How is that different from Victor's surveillance? It's different because I wasn't trying to control you, Damien said. I was trying to understand you, to protect you if you needed it, but I never used that information to manipulate you. You used it to manipulate the situation, Arya shot back. When Victor showed up, you knew exactly who he was, what he wanted. You weren't just defending me on principle, you were operating with full knowledge while I was blind. I was operating with context, Damien corrected. Context that helped me protect you better. But Arya, everything I felt for you, everything between us that's been real, I didn't fall for Arya Moretti, the heiress. I fell for Ari Morgan, the event planner who challenged me and made me laugh and reminded me what it feels like to be human. Arya wanted to stay angry, wanted to feel betrayed and manipulated. But underneath the hurt was something else, a reluctant understanding. Damien had known her secret and kept it safe. He'd let her reveal herself in her own time. He'd never used his knowledge as leverage or control. "You still should have told me," she said, but her voice had lost its sharp edge. "I know," Damien said. "I'm sorry. I thought I was giving you agency, but I see now I was just making decisions for you. Even if they were different kinds of decisions than the ones men have been making for you your whole life." He stepped closer, but didn't touch her. "I'm learning," he said quietly, "learning how to love someone without controlling them. It's harder than I thought it would be, but I want to get it right. I want to be the partner you deserve." Arya looked at him, this complicated man who'd protected her and deceived her, and somehow done both out of the same motivation, caring about her. "No more secrets," she said firmly. "If we're doing this, we do it with complete honesty, even when it's uncomfortable." "No more secrets," Damien agreed. "I promise." Arya took a breath, then made her own confession. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Scared that you'll wake up one day and realize I'm not worth all this trouble. Scared that my father's right and you're just interested in the chase. Scared that I'm falling for you and it's going to destroy me when it ends." "It's not going to end," Damien said with absolute certainty. "You can't know that," Arya said. "No," Damien agreed, "but I can commit to it. I can promise that I'm in this for the long haul, that I'm not going anywhere, that every day I'm going to choose you." He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Arya's breath caught. "I know it's fast," Damien said. "I know we've only known each other for 2 months and most of that has been crisis management, but I also know that I want you in my life permanently, not as a statement, not to protect you from Victor, but because I love you." He opened the box to reveal a ring, a simple sapphire surrounded by diamonds, elegant without being ostentatious. "Marry me," Damien said, "not to save face or solve a problem. Marry me because we're better together than apart, because you make me want to be more than just a successful businessman, because I want to spend my life proving to you that partnership doesn't have to mean possession." Arya stared at the ring, her mind spinning. This was insane. They barely knew each other. They were in the middle of multiple lawsuits. The media was watching their every move. But she also knew, with absolute certainty, that she loved him, loved his strength and his vulnerability, loved the way he stood up for her without trying to speak for her, loved that he challenged her and supported her in equal measure. "Ask me again in 6 months," she said. Damien's face fell slightly, but he nodded. "Okay. Ask me when the lawsuits are settled," Arya continued, "when we're not in crisis mode, when we've had time to actually know each other in normal circumstances. Ask me when I can say yes without wondering if I'm just saying it because I'm grateful or scared or caught up in the intensity of everything." She reached out and closed the ring box, but didn't push it away. "Ask me then," she said, "and if you still want this, if we still want each other after the dust settles, I'll say yes." Damien looked at her for a long moment, then smiled. "That's fair. That's smart. That's very you." "Is that a problem?" Arya asked. "It's perfect," Damien said, pocketing the ring. "You're perfect, and I can wait 6 months if that's what you need." "Thank you," Arya said. "For what?" "For understanding that love doesn't mean rushing," Arya said. "For respecting that I need time to be sure. For being patient with someone who's been hurt by impatient men." Damien pulled her into his arms, and Arya let herself sink into the embrace. "I'll wait as long as you need," he murmured into her hair, "because you're worth waiting for. If this story is moving you, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the conclusion, because the ending is going to show what real love looks like when it's tested and proven true." 6 months passed like a lifetime and a heartbeat all at once. The lawsuits dragged through the courts exactly as Arya had predicted. Roberto's case fell apart when trust documents proved definitively that Arya's grandmother had left the money solely to her, with her father as administrator only until she reached legal adulthood. The judge dismissed the theft charges with prejudice and ordered Roberto to pay Aria's legal fees. Victor's political maneuvering backfired spectacularly when the ethics investigation uncovered not just his vendetta against Damien, but a pattern of using his position to punish personal enemies. He resigned from his assembly seat under pressure, his political career effectively over. Senator Lane, trying to salvage his own reputation, publicly distanced himself from his son and issued a formal apology to both Aria and Damien. The media eventually moved on to newer scandals, though Aria's story had sparked a broader conversation about arranged marriages and women's autonomy that continued long after the headlines faded. Through it all, Aria and Damien built something real. They learned each other in the ordinary moments that the cameras didn't capture: morning coffee and crossword puzzles, late-night conversations about childhood dreams and adult disappointments, arguments about everything from politics to the correct way to load a dishwasher. Aria moved into Damien's penthouse officially after 2 months, but insisted on paying rent despite his protests. "I need to contribute," she'd said firmly. "I need to know I'm here as an equal, not a dependent." Damien had accepted that, just as he'd accepted all her boundaries. He was learning, slowly but surely, that loving her meant giving her space to be fully herself. Aria launched her foundation, Freedom House, with Damien's financial backing, but her own vision and leadership. It provided legal assistance, housing, and job training for women, escaping arranged marriages and controlling relationships. The first woman they helped was Victor's ex-wife, who'd broken her NDA to support Aria. Aria made sure she had the best lawyers and a settlement that allowed her to rebuild her life on her own terms. Damien restructured Cross Industries to be less dependent on government contracts, diversifying into ventures that aligned more with his personal values. He spent less time in the office and more time on projects that actually mattered to him. And slowly, carefully, they fell deeper in love. Not the desperate, intense love born from crisis, but the steady, enduring love built on trust and partnership, and choosing each other every single day. 6 months to the day after Damien's first proposal, Aria woke to find him already awake, watching her in the early morning light. "That's creepy," she murmured, still half asleep. "That's love," Damien corrected with a slight smile. Aria stretched and sat up, taking the coffee he handed her. It was perfect. As always, he'd learned exactly how she liked it. "Do you know what today is?" Damien asked. "Saturday," Aria replied, deliberately obtuse. "It's been 6 months," Damien said, "since I asked you to marry me, since you told me to ask again when the dust settled." Aria's heart skipped. She'd known this day was coming, had been thinking about it for weeks. The question was, what was her answer? "The dust has settled," Damien continued. "The lawsuits are over. Victor's gone. Your father's retreated back to Connecticut with his tail between his legs. We're not in crisis anymore." "No," Aria agreed. "We're not." "So I'm asking again," Damien said, pulling out the same ring box he'd shown her 6 months earlier, "but with some additions to my original proposal." He opened the box, and the sapphire caught the morning light. "Marry me," Damien said. "Not because I want to protect you, you've proven you can protect yourself. Not because I want to possess you, I've learned that's impossible and insulting to try. Marry me because we're partners, because we make each other better, because I want to build a life where we both have the freedom to be exactly who we are." He paused. "Marry me because I love you, the real you, not the society princess or the runaway or the event planner or the foundation director. Just Aria, complicated and brilliant and brave and stubborn and perfect." Aria felt tears prick her eyes. "I have conditions," she said. "I'd expect nothing less," Damien replied with a slight smile. "Prenup," Aria said. "Full and fair. I need to know that if this doesn't work, I can walk away with my independence intact." "Done," Damien said immediately. "My lawyers can draft something equitable. And I keep my own career," Aria continued. "Freedom House is mine. I run it, I make the decisions, I build it into what I envision. You can support it, but you don't control it." "I wouldn't dream of it," Damien said. "And we have separate spaces," Aria said. "I love living with you, but I need a room that's just mine, a place where I can think and create and be alone when I need to be." "The guest suite is already yours," Damien said. "I'll have it renovated however you want." Aria took a breath. And if you ever, and I mean ever, try to make decisions for me without my input, if you try to control me or manipulate me or treat me like property, I'm gone. No second chances. No forgiveness. Just gone." Damien's expression turned serious. "I understand, and I accept those terms. All of them." "Then yes," Arya said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." Damien slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, just as it had 6 months ago when he'd first shown it to her. Then he kissed her, deep and tender and full of promise. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice," he murmured against her lips. "You already have," Arya replied. They decided on a small wedding in Italy, far from the media circus that had defined the first months of their relationship. Only the people who truly mattered would be there, a handful of friends, Damien's business partner David, Patricia from Arya's foundation, and a few others who'd supported them through the chaos. Arya didn't invite her father. The silence from Connecticut had continued for 6 months, and she'd made peace with the fact that Roberto had chosen his pride over his daughter. But 3 weeks before the wedding, a letter arrived. Arya stared at the envelope, recognizing her father's handwriting, her hands trembling slightly. Damien appeared beside her. "You don't have to open it." "I know," Arya said, but she did anyway. Inside was a single page, written in Roberto's precise script. "Arya, I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I see now what I did to you, what I tried to do. I spent so long viewing you as an asset, as a means to save the business, that I forgot you were my daughter, my child, the little girl who used to bring me dandelions and call them treasure. I was wrong, about Victor, about the arrangement, about everything. You are not property, you never were, and I'm sorry it took losing you for me to understand that. I'm not asking to be part of your life again. I know I forfeited that right, but I wanted you to know that I'm proud of what you've built. Freedom House is doing important work, and the woman you've become, strong, independent, brave, is everything your mother would have wanted. I hope you find happiness with Damien. I hope he treasures you the way you deserve to be treasured. Congratulations on your engagement. Your father, Roberto." Arya read the letter twice, then a third time, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't enough. It didn't erase the hurt or make up for the years of being seen as a commodity rather than a person. But it was something, an acknowledgement, an apology. "What do you want to do?" Damien asked gently. Arya thought about it carefully. "I want to send him a response. I want to tell him I appreciate the apology, but that rebuilding our relationship, if that ever happens, will take time and effort on his part." "That sounds reasonable," Damien said. "And I want to tell him about the prenup," Arya added. "I want him to know that I'm not marrying you for money or security, that I'm choosing this because I want it, not because I need it." "He doesn't deserve that reassurance," Damien said. "Maybe not," Arya agreed, "but I need to give it anyway, for me. So I know I'm not repeating old patterns, so I know I'm making this choice from strength, not fear." Damien kissed her forehead. "Then do it, whatever you need to find peace with this." Arya wrote back that evening, not a long letter, but an honest one. She told her father she accepted his apology, but that it would take time to rebuild trust. She told him about the prenup, about maintaining her independence, about building a marriage on partnership rather than possession. She told him she hoped he'd continue his own growth and reflection, and she told him that maybe, someday, they could find a way to be in each other's lives again, but that would be her choice to make, when and if she was ready. She didn't invite him to the wedding. That felt like too much, too soon. But sending the letter felt like closure, like the final step in reclaiming her narrative. The wedding took place on a perfect June evening at a villa in Tuscany. The venue was intimate, a centuries-old building, with stone walls covered in climbing roses and views of rolling hills dotted with cypress trees. The ceremony was at sunset, the golden light painting everything in shades of amber and gold. Arya wore a dress she'd chosen herself, simple ivory silk that flowed like water, with delicate lace sleeves and an open back. No veil, no train, nothing that felt like it belonged to someone else's vision of what a bride should be. Her hair was down in loose waves, adorned with small white flowers. She wore the sapphire engagement ring and simple diamond earrings Damien had given her. She looked like herself. That was all that mattered. There was no one to walk her down the aisle. She walked alone, by choice. It was symbolic of the journey she'd taken, the independence she'd fought for. Damien waited for her at the altar, devastating in a tailored dark suit, his eyes fixed on her with such intensity that Arya felt it like a physical touch. When she reached him, he took both her hands in his and whispered, "You're breathtaking." "You're not so bad yourself," Arya replied, making them both smile. The ceremony was officiated by a friend of Damien's, a judge who'd known him for years and understood what this marriage represented. "We're here today," she began, "to witness the union of two people who found each other in the midst of chaos and chose to build something beautiful from it." She looked at Arya and Damien with warmth. This is not a traditional love story. It didn't begin with love at first sight or grand romantic gestures. It began with respect, with recognition of each other as equals, with the courage to be vulnerable. The judge smiled. "And that, I think, is a better foundation for marriage than any fairy tale." They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Damien went first. "Arya, when you walked into my conference room 6 months ago and refused to be intimidated by me, I knew you were different. I just didn't know how much you'd change my life." His voice was steady but filled with emotion. "You taught me that real strength isn't about control. It's about knowing when to stand firm and when to bend, when to protect and when to step back, when to lead and when to follow." He squeezed her hands. "I promise to love you without trying to own you, to support your dreams without trying to shape them, to challenge you without trying to change you. I promise to see you, always, exactly as you are, and to love every version of you that exists." Damien's voice grew softer. "I promise to build a kingdom with you, not for you, to treat you as a queen, not a subject, and I promise that every day for the rest of my life, I will choose you, freely, completely, without reservation." Arya's hands trembled as she began her own vows. "Damien, for most of my life, I thought love meant sacrifice, meant making yourself smaller so someone else could feel bigger, meant accepting control disguised as care." She looked directly into his eyes. "You taught me that love can be different, that it can be expansive instead of restrictive, that it can make you more yourself, not less." Her voice grew stronger. "I promise to bring my whole self to this marriage, the strong parts and the scared parts, the confident moments and the doubtful ones. I promise to tell you the truth, even when it's difficult, to fight for us, even when it would be easier to walk away." Arya smiled through her tears. "I promise to build a life with you where we're both free to be exactly who we are, to create a partnership based on mutual respect, not obligation. And I promise to love you fiercely, honestly, and without reservation, because you've proven that's safe to do." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried across the quiet gathering. "You didn't rescue me from a cage. You helped me remember I had the key all along. Thank you for that. Thank you for seeing me. And thank you for choosing me, every single day." There wasn't a dry eye in the small gathering. The judge pronounced them married, and Damien kissed Arya with a tenderness that made her feel cherished and powerful all at once. As they walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, Arya felt something she'd never fully experienced before. Complete freedom, paired with complete commitment. She'd chosen this. Every step of the way, she'd made her own choices. And that made all the difference. The reception was held in the villa's garden, under strings of lights that turned the evening into something magical. There were toasts, some funny, some emotional, all of them genuine. Patricia spoke about watching Arya transform from a frightened woman using a fake name to a confident leader, changing lives through Freedom House. David talked about how Damien had been so focused on building his empire that he'd forgotten to build a life, until Arya reminded him what actually mattered. But the most unexpected speech came from a video message that played on a screen set up in the garden. Victor's first ex-wife, the woman who'd broken her NDA to support Arya, appeared on screen. "Arya, I know we've never met in person," she said, "but I wanted to say thank you. When you stood up to Victor, when you refused to be controlled, you didn't just save yourself. You showed other women that it's possible, that we don't have to accept abuse or control just because it comes wrapped in wealth and status." Her eyes were bright with emotion. "Because of you, I found the courage to rebuild my life. To use the settlement, you helped me get to start my own business. To finally believe I deserve better. You gave that to me. You gave that to so many women. She smiled. So, congratulations on your marriage. And thank you for proving that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to settle. You're an inspiration to all of us. The video ended, and Arya was crying openly now. Damien pulled her close, and she let herself lean into him, this man who'd proven that strength and tenderness weren't opposites. As the evening wore on and the celebration continued, Arya found herself on the terrace overlooking the Tuscan hills, taking a moment of quiet. Damien found her there, as she'd known he would. "Hiding from your own wedding?" he asked, settling beside her. "Savoring it," Arya corrected. "This is perfect. All of it." "It is," Damien agreed. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the last light fade from the sky and the stars begin to appear. "Can I tell you something?" Arya said. "Always. I was terrified to trust you," Arya admitted. "Even after 6 months, even knowing you'd proven yourself over and over, there was this voice in my head saying I was making a mistake, that I was just trading one cage for another. And now?" Damien asked. "Now I know that voice was wrong," Arya said, "because a cage is something that confines you, and you've only ever wanted me to fly." She turned to face him. "You gave me back to myself. That's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me." Damien's expression was so full of love it made Arya's chest ache in the best way. "You gave that to yourself," he said softly. "You had the courage to run, to rebuild, to refuse to accept less than you deserved. I just had the good sense to recognize what I was looking at when you walked into my life." He took her hand, running his thumb over her wedding ring. "You ran from a cage and found a throne," he said, echoing the words he'd whispered to her once before. "And I'll spend forever proving you deserve it." Arya kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it, gratitude and love and hope, and the absolute certainty that she'd finally found where she belonged. Not in a place, but with a person who understood that love meant freedom, not possession. 1 year later, Arya stood at a podium addressing a room full of 200 women. Freedom House had grown beyond anything she'd imagined. They now had locations in 5 cities, had helped over 300 women escape controlling relationships, and had become a recognized leader in advocacy for women's autonomy. Today was their annual gala, the largest fundraiser of the year. Arya no longer felt nervous speaking in front of crowds. She'd learned that her story had power, and sharing it helped others find their own strength. "A little over a year ago," she said, her voice clear and confident, "I stood at a different gala and watched my past walk through the door. The man I'd been sold to, the father who'd betrayed me, and I thought my carefully built new life was over." She smiled, but it wasn't over. It was just beginning, because that night I learned that I didn't have to face my demons alone, that asking for help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. She looked out at the audience, seeing women at various stages of their own journeys. "Many of you in this room are where I was a year ago, scared, uncertain, wondering if you have the strength to leave, to start over, to build something new. And I'm here to tell you that you do. You absolutely do." Arya's voice grew stronger. "But you shouldn't have to do it alone. That's why Freedom House exists. Not to rescue you, you're not damsels who need rescuing, but to support you, to provide resources and legal assistance, and a community of women who understand what you're going through." She glanced at Damien, who sat in the front row watching her with pride evident in his eyes. "I was lucky," she continued. "I had resources, education, and someone who stood by me when things got difficult. Not everyone has that, but everyone deserves it. Everyone deserves the support to choose their own path." Arya's eyes found Patricia, then Victor's ex-wife, then several other women whose lives had been transformed by the foundation. This past year, Freedom House has helped 347 women leave controlling relationships. We've provided legal representation, temporary housing, job training, and counseling. We've proven that when women support each other, when we build systems of care instead of judgment, amazing things happen. She paused for effect. "But we're not done. This year, we're expanding to 3 more cities. We're launching a legal advocacy program to challenge laws that enable arranged marriages and coercive control. We're partnering with corporations to create employment pipelines for women rebuilding their lives." Arya smiled. "And we're doing all of this because I refuse to accept that being born into a certain family meant giving up my right to choose my own future. Because one woman's courage to leave inspired others to do the same. Because we all deserve the freedom to write our own stories. The room erupted in applause. After the formal program ended, Arya worked the room, talking with donors and supporters, and the Women Freedom House had helped. A young woman approached her nervously, maybe 22, with eyes that held too much experience for her age. "Miss Cross, I just wanted to say thank you," she said quietly. "I saw your interview last year, the one where you talked about leaving your arranged marriage, and it gave me the courage to leave mine." Arya took the young woman's hands. "Tell me your story." "My parents brought me from India when I was 18, the woman explained. "They'd already arranged my marriage to a man here. He was 40. I was terrified, but I thought I had no choice." She took a shaky breath. "Then I saw you on television, talking about how you ran away, how you built a new life, and I thought, if she can do it, maybe I can too. So I contacted Freedom House. They helped me find a lawyer, get a restraining order, find a job. I've been free for 6 months now." Tears shone in her eyes. "I'm going to college next fall, studying computer science. I'm going to build apps that help other women escape. Because of you, I have a future I choose." Arya pulled the young woman into a hug, her own eyes burning. "You did this," she said firmly. "You made the brave choice. You saved yourself. I'm just glad we could help." "You did more than help," the woman said. "You showed me it was possible." After she left, Damien appeared at Arya's side. "You okay?" he asked, noticing her tears. "I'm perfect," Arya said, wiping her eyes. "Do you see what we're doing? We're changing lives." "You're changing lives," Damien corrected. "This is your vision, your passion, your work." "Our work," Arya said, taking his hand. "You made this possible. Your funding, your connections, your support." "I just wrote checks," Damien said. "You did everything that matters." Arya looked around the gala, at the women networking and supporting each other, at the donors writing larger checks than she'd dared hope for, at the future taking shape before her eyes. "A year ago, I was terrified that Victor finding me meant losing everything I'd built," she said. "But instead, it led to this, to building something even bigger and more meaningful." She turned to Damien. "Thank you for standing with me, for fighting for me, for loving me enough to let me be exactly who I am." "Thank you for teaching me what love actually looks like," Damien replied. "For showing me that the strongest partnerships are built on freedom, not control." They stood together, watching the gala continue around them, and Arya felt a completeness she'd never experienced before. She'd run from a cage and found not just freedom, but purpose. She'd escaped one powerful man and found another who understood that real power came from empowering others, not controlling them. She'd transformed her pain into something that helped others escape their own pain, and she'd found a partner who celebrated her strength instead of fearing it. 2 years after the wedding, Arya received an unexpected visitor at Freedom House headquarters. Her assistant buzzed her office. "You have a visitor, Roberto Moretti. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important." Arya's heart skipped. She hadn't seen her father since the day he'd tried to force her to return to Victor. Their only communication had been occasional letters, his expressing regret, hers maintaining careful boundaries. "Send him in," she said, steeling herself. Roberto entered looking older, smaller somehow. The arrogance that had once defined him was gone, replaced by something that looked like humility. "Arya," he said, stopping just inside the door. "Thank you for seeing me." "I wasn't sure I would," Arya admitted. "What do you want, father?" Roberto looked around the office at the photos of Women Freedom House had helped, at the awards and recognition the organization had received, at the evidence of everything Arya had built. "I wanted to see what you've created," he said quietly. "I've been following the foundation's work. It's remarkable." "Thank you," Arya said, her tone neutral. Roberto moved closer, but respectfully kept distance between them. "I also came to apologize. Again. Properly this time." "You already apologized in your letter," Arya said. "Words on paper," Roberto said. "I needed to say it to your face. I needed you to see that I mean it." He took a breath. "What I did to you was unforgivable. I treated you like a commodity instead of my daughter. I chose money and reputation over your happiness and freedom. I enabled Victor's pursuit of you even when I suspected he was dangerous. I put my own failures ahead of your well-being." His voice broke slightly. "You were right to leave. Right to cut me out of your life. right to build something new without me. And I'm sorry I didn't see that sooner. Arya studied her father, looking for any sign of manipulation or ulterior motive. She found none. Just genuine remorse. Why now? She asked. Why come here after 2 years? Because I'm dying, Roberto said simply. The words hit Arya like a physical blow. What? Pancreatic cancer, Roberto explained. Stage 4. I have maybe 6 months, probably less. Arya sank into her chair, her mind reeling. Does anyone else know? Just my doctors, Roberto said. I wanted to tell you before I told anyone else, before I run out of time to say what needs to be said. He sat down across from her, moving slowly, and Arya noticed for the first time how thin he'd become. I'm not here to ask for your forgiveness, he continued. I don't deserve it. I'm not here to try to repair our relationship in my final months. That wouldn't be fair to you. Then why are you here? Arya asked, her voice thick. To tell you I'm proud of you, Roberto said. To tell you that your mother would be proud of you. To tell you that you became everything we hoped you'd be: strong, independent, compassionate, brave, just not in the way I tried to force you to be. Tears slipped down Arya's cheeks. You hurt me, she said, so deeply. I know, Roberto said, and I'll regret that for whatever time I have left. They sat in silence for a long moment. What about the business? Arya finally asked. Sold, Roberto said. I couldn't maintain it after the scandal. I sold what was left, and I'm using the money to fund organizations like yours. Ones that help women escape situations like the one I tried to trap you in. He pulled out an envelope. This is a check made out to Freedom House. It's not enough to make up for what I did. Nothing could be. But it's something. Arya took the envelope, but didn't open it. I don't know if I can forgive you, she said honestly. I don't expect you to, Roberto said. I just wanted you to know that I see now how wrong I was, and that watching what you've built, the lives you've changed, it's helped me understand what real legacy looks like. He stood slowly. I won't take more of your time. I just needed to say this in person. Wait, Arya said. Roberto paused. I can't forgive you yet, Arya said carefully. Maybe not ever, but I also don't want you to die alone, full of regret, with no chance at peace. She took a breath. If you're serious about making amends, about understanding what you did wrong, then maybe we can talk. Supervised conversations, with a therapist present, not to rebuild our relationship necessarily, but to find closure. Roberto's eyes filled with tears. I'd like that, very much. I'm not promising anything beyond talking, Arya said firmly. I'm not promising reconciliation or forgiveness or a deathbed reunion. Just conversation, honesty. That's more than I deserve, Roberto said. Thank you. After he left, Arya sat in her office for a long time, processing. When Damien arrived to pick her up for dinner, he found her staring out the window, the unopened envelope on her desk. What happened? He asked immediately. Arya told him everything. What do you want to do? Damien asked when she finished. I don't know, Arya admitted. Part of me wants to tell him to leave me alone, that it's too late for apologies. Part of me thinks maybe everyone deserves the chance to make peace before they die. What does your gut say? Damien asked. Arya thought about it. That I'll regret it if I don't at least try. Not for him, for me. So I know I gave him the chance to be honest, to acknowledge what he did, so I don't spend the rest of my life wondering if there was something left unsaid. Then do it, Damien said. Whatever you decide, I'm here. Even if I decide to let him back into my life in some limited way? Arya asked. Even then, Damien confirmed. He's your father. That's complicated. I won't judge whatever you need to do to find peace with it. Arya opened the envelope. The check was for $2 million. He sold everything, she said softly. The business, the estate, everything, and he's giving it all away. Guilt money, Damien said. Maybe, Arya agreed, but it'll help a lot of women, and isn't that what matters? She looked at Damien. I want to try. The therapy sessions, the conversations. I want to see if there's any way to find closure before he dies. Then we'll make it happen, Damien said. Whatever you need. The therapy sessions with Roberto were difficult and draining. Week after week, Arya and her father sat across from each other in a therapist's office and talked about the past, about her childhood, about the pressure he'd put on her, About the moment he decided to arrange her marriage, Roberto didn't make excuses. He owned every failing, every choice that had prioritized his needs over hers. "I was raised to see daughters as assets," he admitted in one session. "My father did the same thing to my sisters. It was just what you did. In our world, you married your children strategically to strengthen the family position." "But Mom wasn't arranged," Aria pointed out. "You chose her." "I did," Roberto said. "And that marriage taught me what love looked like. But when she died, when I started losing the business, I reverted to what I knew, to treating relationships as transactions." He looked at Aria with genuine remorse. "I forgot that you weren't a business asset. You were my daughter, my child, the person I was supposed to protect and nurture, not sell to the highest bidder." "Why Victor?" Aria asked, a question that had haunted her. "Why him specifically?" Roberto was quiet for a long time. "Because he reminded me of myself at that age," he finally said. "Ambitious, connected, determined to build something. I thought he'd take care of you the way I took care of your mother." "But you knew about the rumors," Aria pressed. "About his first wife, about the way he treated women." "I told myself they were just rumors," Roberto admitted, "because accepting they were true would mean acknowledging I was handing my daughter to a dangerous man. It was easier to believe he was misunderstood than to admit I was sacrificing you for money." The honesty was brutal but necessary. Slowly, painfully, they began to understand each other in ways they never had before. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. A beginning, perhaps, of healing. 4 months into the therapy sessions, Roberto's health declined rapidly. Aria visited him in the hospice facility where he'd been admitted. Bringing photos of the Women Freedom House had helped with the money he'd donated. "They're alive because of this," she said, showing him picture after picture. "Free because you finally did the right thing." Roberto looked at each photo with tears in his eyes. "I can't undo the past," he said, his voice weak. "But at least this is something. At least some good came from the wreckage I made of things." "It doesn't erase what you did," Aria said honestly. "But it matters. It counts for something." Roberto reached for her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Aria let him take it. "I love you," he said. "I know I didn't show it the way I should have. I know I failed you in every way that mattered, but I do love you. I always have." "I know," Aria said, and realized she meant it. "I know you loved me. You just loved your pride and your business more, at least until now." "I'm sorry," Roberto whispered, "for all of it." "I know," Aria said again, "and I'm working on forgiving you, not for you, for me, so I can be free of this weight." Roberto died 3 days later, with Aria holding his hand. It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. There was too much damage, too many years of pain, but it was closure, and sometimes that was enough. At Roberto's funeral, a small private affair, Aria gave the eulogy. "My father was a complicated man," she began. "He was capable of great love and great cruelty, often toward the same people. He built an empire, and he destroyed it. He raised a daughter, and he tried to sell her." She looked out at the handful of people who'd come, distant relatives, old business associates, people who'd known. "Roberto, in better times. For a long time I hated him for what he did to me, for treating me like property, for choosing his debts over my freedom, and I think I had every right to that anger." Aria's voice remained steady. "But in his final months, my father did something I never expected. He changed. Not completely, you can't undo a lifetime of choices in a few months. But he tried. He acknowledged what he'd done. He used what little he had left to help women escape situations like the one he'd tried to force me into." She paused. "He taught me, in the end, that it's never too late to try to be better, that even our worst mistakes can become catalysts for good if we're willing to face them honestly." Aria looked down at the casket. "I'm not going to stand here and pretend we had a perfect relationship, or that his late life redemption erased years of harm. But I will say that he was my father, and he loved me in the broken way he knew how. And in the end, he found a way to turn his greatest failure into something meaningful." She stepped back from the podium. "Rest in peace, Father. I hope you finally found the peace you were looking for." After the service, Damien found her standing alone by the grave. "How are you holding up?" he asked, wrapping an arm around her waist. "I don't know," Aria admitted. "I'm sad but not devastated. Relieved, but not happy. It's complicated. Grief usually is, Damien said. They stood in silence for a moment. He left me a letter, Arya said. His lawyer gave it to me this morning. Want to hear it? Damien nodded. Arya pulled out the envelope and read aloud. My dearest Arya, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you're free of me, truly free this time. Not just physically, but emotionally. I don't expect you to mourn me the way you mourned your mother. She earned that grief through years of love and sacrifice. I earned only the complicated feelings that come from being hurt by someone who should have protected you. But I want you to know something. In my final months, watching you build Freedom House, seeing the lives you've changed, understanding finally what real strength and courage look like, you gave me something I didn't deserve. You gave me the chance to die knowing I'd created something good. Not the business I built. That was always just about money and pride. But you, I helped create you. And despite my best efforts to break you, you became extraordinary. You took the worst thing I ever did to you and transformed it into a movement that's saving lives. You turned pain into purpose. That's alchemy. That's grace. I hope you find everything you deserve in this life, love without conditions, success without compromise, happiness without sacrifice. You've already found it with Damien. Hold on to that. Hold on to him. Hold on to the woman you've become. And if you ever doubt yourself, if you ever wonder if you made the right choices, remember this: you were right to leave, right to run, right to choose freedom over obligation. You were right about everything. I love you. I'm sorry I couldn't show it the way you needed. Your father, Roberto. Arya's voice broke on the final words, and Damien pulled her into his arms as she cried. Not just for her father, but for the relationship they'd never quite had, for the childhood she'd never quite experienced, for the years of pain that couldn't be undone, but also, surprisingly, with a sense of completion. She'd given him the chance to make peace. He'd taken it as best he could, and now she could move forward without the weight of wondering what if. 6 months after Roberto's death, Arya stood on a stage in Washington, D.C., testifying before a congressional committee about coercive control and arranged marriages in immigrant communities. She was there as the director of Freedom House, which had grown into a nationally recognized organization with locations in 12 cities and partnerships around the world. But she was also there as someone who'd lived the experience. Arranged marriages aren't always violent, she told the committee. Sometimes they're presented as family duty or cultural tradition. Sometimes they're framed as what's best for everyone involved. But when they involve coercion, when they deny women the right to choose their own partners, they're a violation of fundamental human rights. She presented data on the women Freedom House had served, on the patterns they'd observed, on the legal gaps that allowed coercive practices to continue. We need legislation that specifically addresses coercive control, Arya argued. Laws that recognize that abuse isn't just physical, that manipulation and threats and isolation are forms of violence, that using immigration status or financial dependence to force compliance is not acceptable. Several committee members asked challenging questions, trying to balance cultural sensitivity with human rights concerns. Arya answered each one with the expertise she'd developed over 3 years of running Freedom House. When the hearing concluded, one of the senators, a woman who'd been particularly supportive, approached Arya. "That was powerful testimony," she said. "I want to introduce legislation based on your recommendations. Would Freedom House be willing to partner on drafting it?" "Absolutely," Arya said. 6 months later, the Coercive Control Prevention Act passed with bipartisan support. It was imperfect, like all legislation, but it was a start, and it carried Roberto's name as a memorial, the Roberto Moretti Coercive Control Prevention Act, at Arya's request. He funded this work with his final act, Arya had told the senator. Let his legacy be helping to prevent what he once enabled. When the bill passed, Arya stood in the gallery of the Senate chamber with Damien beside her and wept. 3 years ago, she'd been a terrified woman running from an arranged marriage. Now she was changing laws that would protect thousands of women from the same fate. 4 years after their wedding, on a quiet Sunday morning, Arya woke to find Damien already awake beside her. "Can't sleep," she murmured. "Thinking," Damien replied. "About what?" "About how different my life is now compared to before I met you," he said. How I used to measure success by stock prices and acquisition deals. How empty that feels now. Arya propped herself up on one elbow. Regretting the quiet life? God, no, Damien said with a slight laugh. I'm just grateful. You saved me from becoming someone I would have hated. You saved yourself, Arya corrected. You chose to change. I just gave you a reason to want to. We saved each other, Damien amended. Arya smiled. I can live with that. They lay in comfortable silence for a while, the Sunday morning light filtering through the curtains of their bedroom. I have something to tell you, Arya said. Okay. Freedom House has been approached by the UN, she said. They want to create an international version of our model, help women globally who are facing forced marriages and coercive control. That's incredible, Damien said. It would mean a lot of travel, Arya continued. Training sessions around the world, building partnerships in different countries, months away from home. Okay, Damien said simply. Just okay? Arya asked. No concerns about me being gone so much. You built something extraordinary, Damien said. If the world needs it, then you should share it. I'll miss you when you're traveling, but I'll also be incredibly proud, and I can always join you when possible. Arya kissed him. How did I get so lucky? I ask myself that every day, Damien replied, though I don't think luck had much to do with it. I think you chose well. And so did I. Arya settled back against him, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. She'd run from a cage and found a throne, but more than that, she'd discovered that the real throne, the real power, came from within, from knowing her worth, from refusing to settle, from building something meaningful with her pain, and from finding a partner who understood that real love meant freedom, not possession. I'm going to say yes to the UN, Arya said. I thought you might, Damien replied. When do you start? 3 months. They want to launch with pilot programs in 5 countries. Then we have 3 months to plan, Damien said. Figure out logistics. Make sure Freedom House has leadership in place to handle your absence. Maybe take a vacation before you're traveling constantly. Always planning, Arya teased. Always supporting, Damien corrected. That afternoon, they told their closest friends the news at a small gathering. Patricia immediately offered to step up as interim director of Freedom House during Arya's travels. David suggested restructuring some of Damien's business commitments so he could travel with Arya more often. Victor's ex-wife, who'd become a close friend and Freedom House board member, proposed creating a documentary about the international expansion to raise awareness and funds. Watching her community rally around this new venture, Arya felt overwhelmed with gratitude. She'd started this journey alone, running from a man who wanted to own her. Now she had a family of choice people who supported her dreams without trying to control them. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. All of you, for believing in this work, for believing in me. You made it easy, Patricia said. You built something worth believing in. That evening, after everyone had left, Arya and Damien stood on their terrace overlooking the city. 4 years ago, I stood on a balcony at the Met and watched my past walk through the door, Arya said. I thought my life was over. And now? Damien asked. Now I know it was just beginning, Arya replied. Everything that happened, leaving Victor, meeting you, building Freedom House, even reconciling with my father before he died, it was all part of becoming who I was meant to be. She turned to face Damien. You asked me once what the difference was between you and Victor. I told you it was about freedom versus ownership. But it's more than that. What is it? Damien asked. It's that you saw me as a queen when I still saw myself as a prisoner, Arya said. You treated me with the respect I deserved before I even knew I deserved it. You showed me what partnership looks like when it's built on mutual respect instead of control. She took his hands. You didn't save me from a cage. You helped me build a throne. And then you sat beside me on it as an equal, not as a conqueror. That's everything. Damien pulled her close. You ran from a man who wanted to possess you, but you found a man who wanted to worship you, not as an object, as a queen. Is that what you do? Arya asked, smiling. Worship me? Every single day, Damien said seriously. Your strength, your courage, your refusal to be anything less than exactly who you are. How could I not worship that? Arya kissed him, deep and tender and full of the love they'd built together over 4 years of choosing each other every single day. I love you, she said. I love you too, Damien replied. My queen. Arya laughed, the sound joyful and free. Because that's what she was free. Not because a man had freed her, but because she'd freed herself. And then she'd found a partner who understood that her freedom was what made her powerful. Who understood that the greatest love wasn't about possession, but about empowerment. Who understood that real power came from building each other up, not tearing each other down. She'd escaped an arranged marriage by seducing a ruthless millionaire. But what she'd found was so much more than that. She'd found herself, her purpose, her power, and a love that proved that sometimes the most revolutionary act is refusing to settle for anything less than you deserve. The end. Some stories aren't about being saved. They're about saving yourself, about having the courage to run when you need to run, and the wisdom to trust when you find something real. About understanding that real love doesn't ask you to be smaller, it celebrates you for being exactly as big and bold and brilliant as you are. Arya didn't need rescuing. She needed someone who understood that giving her freedom was the greatest act of love. And Damien didn't need to be softened. He needed someone who challenged him to be more than just successful, to be good. Together, they built something neither could have built alone. A partnership based on mutual respect, a love based on freedom, an empire based on empowerment. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share your thoughts about freedom, about partnership, about the courage it takes to choose yourself, even when it costs you everything. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, because stories about women who refuse to be owned and men who learn that real power comes from empowering others are what we're all about. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And remember, you are never obligated to accept a cage, no matter how gilded. You deserve a throne. And you deserve someone who treats you like royalty, not as property, but as an equal. Until next time,